Hello, this is and I am Kitty Hollywood. I'm going to talk about movies that are awesome but aren't necessarily that well known. And the first film I'm going to talk about is The Big Country, 1958, directed by William Wyler, starring Gregory Peck, Charlton Heston, Gene Simmons, Charles Bickford, Burl Ives, Chuck Connors and Carol Baker. It is a film that is as big as its cast. It was shot in California, which is supposed to be Texas, but apparently California was bigger. It is 165 minutes long, which is a really long film. It's a Western. It's about an Easterner who comes west because he's met a beautiful woman in Baltimore and has proposed to her and she's accepted him. He comes out to meet her and her father and their property and the world in which they live. And by gum, it is a rude awakening. Two warring clans, the Terrell clan and the Hennessy clan. And Gregory Peck, James McKay, who gets caught in between the two of them. Gregory Peck comes to town to marry Patricia Tyrrell, the daughter of Major Tyrrell. He is interested in buying a piece of land that they both have longed for because there is a river running through it. It's called the Big Muddy. Gene Simmons is the woman who owns the Big Muddy. She is a local school mum and the best friend of the fiancé. Charlton Heston is the foreman of Ladder Ranch. He is the right-hand man of Major Tyrrell. He's also in love with the fiancée. I think it's necessary to have a beefcake shock of Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston, yes, don't necessarily agree with everything he does in his personal life, but he can choose scenery like nobody else. He had made a number of films before this film, one of the most notable being The Ten Commandments by Cecil B. DeMille. He was pretty big at this point in time, and William Wyler offered him a not leading role in this film. And he said, I don't want it, I want a leading role, and they argued for a little bit, and then in the end he gave in, and I'm so glad that he did. He ended up being pretty glad that he did because William Wyler cast him the following year in Ben-Hur, and didn't that work out well for Charlton Heston? The next person in the story is Carol Baker, who is the fiancée. She is a spoiled brat, but the film wouldn't be good if she wasn't a spoiled brat. Her best friend, Gene Simmons, who was best known probably for Guys and Dolls just a few years earlier. She's got a presence that most other actresses didn't have. She was equally at home in comedy, in drama. She's in a Western, for crying out loud, this classic English actress. She's the school mom, the well-mannered school mom who has caught the eye of Buck Hennessy. He's the oldest of the clan. He's a mean, yellow dog. You meet the father of Patricia Tyrrell, Major Tyrrell, Charles Bickford. You think he's a gentleman. He dresses well, he speaks with a pleasant tone, but something isn't quite right. And you start hearing about Rufus Hennessy, the head of the Hennessy clan, and you hear about him, and you hear about him, and you hear about him, and you think, who is this guy? Who is this guy who they're all talking about? And 55 minutes into the film, you find out. He's Burl Ives, and Burl Ives won an Oscar for this film. He's incredible.
Someday I'll have to kill you.
Gregory Peck, quite famous by this time, he had formed his own production company, which is interesting. He's one of the co-producers of this film. It was William Wyler, Robert Wyler, who's William Wyler's older brother, and Gregory Peck all worked together to make this film. Apparently things didn't go that well in terms of that relationship. But I think that was just the clash of two producers being on the film whilst at the same time one being an actor and one being a director. There is a YouTube clip on somewhere with Gregory Peck being interviewed about The Big Country, and it's quite interesting, so look it up, go find it. The film, as I've said, is huge, and that is in no small part due to the cinematography. It was the cinematographer was Fritz Planer. He had worked with William Wyler on a few other things. He seemed to just understand completely what it was that William Wyler was seeking. These huge, enormous long shots giving you in every single instance the thundering reiteration that it is a big country, it's huge, it's massive, and everyone in it is tiny and small and insignificant, and yet the story of these characters is enormous. What's happening to them is life and death and love and passion and anger and murder. It's a fascinating film to watch.
The boat got the man, but the sharks got the legs. They finally decided that more of him was saved than was lost, and they settled the bets accordingly.
Now let me tell you one. If you love him, why would you think it? How many times does a man have to win you?
I'd wear that hat too long around here, Mr. McKay.
Oh? Why not?
One of these wild cowboys might take it into his head to shoot it off you.
Look, my husband reckons it's an anti-Western, but I think not so much. It's just more than a Western. There are horses, there are dudes, there's a lot of huffing and fuffing and getting angry over nothing, but there's showing the world that there's a different way, that it doesn't all need to be guns and anger and blood, and he just shows you that you don't need to get worried about what other people think about you at all, ever. Just be true to yourself. There is a film shot mostly in long shot of a major bust-up between Gregory Peck and Charlton Heston that is sublime and points to the futility of violence, because here we are on this enormous planet and there are two small people whacking into each other. There's a beautiful scene about the taming of a horse, Old Thunder, and it's subtle but funny, but amusing, but the film's perfect, seriously, even though it's 165 minutes long. And there's a shirt that I just really, really like in this film. The costume designers were Emile Santiago and Yvonne Wood, and there's a shirt that Gene Simmons wears probably for the latter quarter of the film. It's lovely. The score is by Jerome Moros. It is the best Western score ever. I know what I'm saying. I don't care who disagrees with me. It is my opinion, and it gives me tingles every time I hear it, and it just makes me feel a special little buzzer happy. Does that score. I would say any film that contains the line, "They're full growed and they can take their lickings," deserves to be watched. So please, The Big Country, rent it, buy it, Netflix it, don't care, watch it. 10 out of 10.